And even as a baby, you were reaching out for me. And now we are awaiting the day of your return, when every eye will see you as heaven comes to earth. Until the sky is open, until the trumpet sounds, the bride is getting ready, the church is singing now.
Come, thou long expected Jesus, born to set thy people free from our fears and sins. Release us, let us find our rest in thee. Come, thou long expected King.
Well, hey family, welcome to Ashley Ridge at Home. It's December, and I'm so glad that you are here today. You picked a great Sunday to join us because we're in week 2 of our Advent series called The Weary World Rejoices with Pastor Jenn, and I can't wait to uncover what we're going to talk about today. But first, a couple of things we want you to know. It is December, and so we are geared up and ready to go for Christmas. And speaking of Christmas, we've got events that are going to be online and in person, whether you're for kids, you have students, or you're an adult. We have all of those things covered, and they're happening all month long, and we don't want you to miss it. So if you've got the Ashley Ridge app, just hit the Christmas button on the homepage or visit christmasforsummerville.com. Everything that you need to know about Christmas and some special treats are all on that website, and you can RSVP and share it with a friend from any device that you're using. So, christmasforsummerville.com. And speaking of Christmas, on December the 20th, we're going to be receiving our Christmas offering this year. And I know that 2020 has just been a wild year. Things have happened in a way that no one expected. We expected schools to be closed for 2 weeks, and we expected to kind of just move on with life, and that didn't really happen, did it? But God knows what we need, and He has been faithful every step of the way, and He has provided for this church and for our family, and for us to be able to be for Summerville as a church family together in 2020. And so this year, our opportunity with the Christmas offering is for us to give to God first, not knowing what 2021 is going to hold, but knowing that God knows exactly what we need. So we're going to give to Him first, and we're going to watch what He does with our faithfulness through giving. So thank you in advance for the ways that you are continuing to partner with us to make things happen for Summerville and for your family and for all of the families in this area. So if you want to jump in and be a part of that story today, all that information is right there on your screen. You can give online or mail us a check or whatever you would like to do. Man, and speaking of, we are on a push to feed 150 families with Hearts for Summerville this Christmas. The boxes are already coming into the office. Reminder, if you have not dropped off your food yet, please drop it off at the office by Monday. Monday. We've got the boxes there. Just bring the food. We'll get it packed for you, and because we need to get those meal kits out to families. We love you. Here we go. It's time to keep worshiping, y'all.
Just one word, you calm the storm that surrounds me. Just one word, the darkness has to retreat. Just one touch, I feel the presence of heaven. Just one touch, my eyes were open to see. My heart can't help greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like the power of Jesus. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like the power of Jesus. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like his power. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that he can't move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that Jesus can't do. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a prison wall he can't break through. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. Oh, singing, oh, 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 oh,
a year we will not soon forget. Unfortunately, some of those memories may not be our favorites, but in AR Kids, we have made some amazing memories this year. In unexpected ways, of course. Here's the thing, one of our goals in AR Kids has always been to partner with parents, but 2020 has allowed us ways to do that we didn't see coming. From Game Changers this summer to our kickoff carnival, and most recently, during our fall regathering with our family small groups. Every month we have a life app that we get to talk about and tie in Bible stories to each of those main life concepts. A few months ago, we had the life app of integrity, and the Bible story was based on honesty and telling the truth. A family who's newer to our church came up to me afterwards with her family packet in her hand and said, "This is really gonna come in handy this week." It was an amazing blessing to be able to walk through with that parent some different concepts that she can have in her hands to keep that conversation going. We can't thank you enough for your generosity. When you partner with us as a church financially, we get to keep these ministries going. We get to have fun. We get to watch families worship, pray, and laugh, as well as learn together. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for making 2020 one of the best yet.
Well, everyone, here we are, that magical time of year when we get to have the annual debate about Hallmark movies. And I know that we have discussed this before, and I know that this is not a way to make friends and influence people, because we are going to come out at different places on this particular conversation in terms of those who are pro all of the Hallmark Christmas movies and those who wish the other people living in their house would turn them off. So here's where I come out on this whole debate. I used to be a fan of Hallmark Christmas movies, and now I'm just not. I have to be honest, and here's why. So for all of you who are already done with me and dismissing me, including James Galloway, who is pro Hallmark Christmas movies, so for those of you who don't like me, you can still love him. Here's the deal, is number one, commercials. I can't with commercials. I am spoiled and living in an America where we have streaming things and we've just gotten used to not having the breaks. And so when I have to watch all these commercials and I just lose the focus, okay? So for starters, if you could watch Hallmark Christmas movies without the commercials, I would maybe feel differently. However, the other reason that I struggle and that I used to be a fan and I'm not so much a fan anymore is that it used to be they would do a couple every year. And so they could put more time and energy and into these, feel-good Christmas movies. And now it's become such a thing that they're producing so many of them. And the more that there are, the not so good they are. They're losing a little quality, I would say, with their quantity. Now, this is just a personal opinion, and if you love them, I am thrilled. Maybe you have the sweatshirt, the blanket, whatever it is that goes with this, and that is amazing. But in some ways, there's this thing that as they make more of them, there's this play for our emotions. And we all watch plenty of things and see plenty of things that play for our emotions. But 2020 has introduced plenty of emotions all on its own. I bet that if you're being honest with yourself right now, there are a lot of emotions. Now, if we go into the gender roles, a lot of times women are told, we've got a wider range of emotion than the guys, and that might be true. But I think the truth is, we all have a lot of feelings right now, and that might be angry, frustrated, anxious, sad, glad. There are so many things, and so many things that we can be feeling in any given moment. And then you get the Hallmark movies, and they play right into all of these extra emotions. And for me, I just don't always feel like I have the energy to acknowledge or deal with some of the emotions that are coming up right now. And that idea of having the energy, the wherewithal, brings us to an emotion that I think, a feeling, an emotion, I don't know what the right word is there, that all of us are dealing with right now, and it's the feeling of being weary. Now, I want to say something to you right now, that this weariness that we're feeling, it's not a bad thing. It's actually a human thing. We are designed as people with certain capacities, with certain limitations, and there has been so much introduced into our lives, so many twists and turns and different things that have happened, and it's left us feeling weary. And one of the other ways that we could talk about that is an idea that's been around for quite some time now, and it's something called compassion fatigue. Have you heard people talk about that? It's when you get to a point where so much has happened that you're just struggling to feel anymore. And it's not that the feelings themselves have gone away, it's that you're just struggling for the space or the wherewithal to deal with any of it. And so there starts to be kind of this shutdown that occurs. Are any of you there right now? So we walk into Christmas and we start watching the movies and singing the songs and wanting to deal with the angels and the joy and everything else. But the weariness is sitting in front of us. Several weeks back in October, there was a tragedy in the Summerville community that impacted a large number of people. There was a family that was killed in a head-on car collision, and they were connected to so many because of the time they had spent in this community and in our school systems, and it hit close to home for a lot of people. And one of the things when it happened that I know I was trying to work through was the number of people who that became one more big thing in addition to all of the other things, and people were feeling at a loss for how to even begin to process one more tragedy. And in my mind at the time, it took me to Isaiah 40. It took me to a place in the Old Testament and part of Isaiah's prophecy to the people about where they were and where they were heading and where God was in the midst of their lives. And this was a part of Isaiah that was always a favorite for me growing up. There's a verse that I had on lots of different places, Bible covers and everywhere else. And it's Isaiah 40:31 that says, those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will mount up with wings like eagles, right? You may have heard this. They will run and not grow weary and walk and not grow faint. But in that moment, I felt the need to back up. Because if there's this promise of not growing weary and renewing strength, then what clearly comes before it is an acknowledgement of weariness, an acknowledgement of fatigue, an acknowledgement of we've taken and experienced all that we can experience, and we're just not sure what to do with all of the emotions anymore. And in these coming weeks, as we walk through Advent and as we lead up to Christmas, I actually want to look at the last 5 verses in Isaiah 40, finishing with that verse that I just shared. And I want us to take a little bit of a closer look at this idea of what does it mean to be weary, and also to find joy. And so to start there in Isaiah 40, these last 5 verses means that we start in verse 27. And here's what it says. It says, why do you complain, Jacob? And maybe your name's not Jacob, but you need to know that Jacob was the one he was the son of Isaac, grandson of Abraham. He had 12 sons that would become the tribes of Israel. But Jacob was representative of the whole people of God. And so even if your name's not Jacob, this is being addressed to everyone. This is an emotion, a feeling. This is a place that we're in together. And he says, why do you complain, Jacob? And why do you say, Israel, which is what Jacob was renamed as this representative, my way is hidden from the Lord, and my cause is disregarded by my God. And right there, that's human weariness talking. This is fatigue. Have you felt that? The hands in the air. Where are you, God? Do you still even see all the things that we're dealing with? Are you aware of all of these pieces? Have you given up? Have you hibernated for winter? Have you decided that enough was enough? Have you gone a different way? Where are you? Why are you ignoring me? These are the kinds of things when weariness and fatigue start to catch up with us. And we feel those overwhelming senses of frustration and just, what do we do now? But then Isaiah says this, do you not know, and have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth, not just a little bit, all of it. And he will not grow tired or weary. And his understanding, no one can fathom. All right, so before we go any further in a conversation about our own weariness, here's this reminder, right? Because this wasn't a real have you not heard and don't you know. These are rhetorical questions that are leading up to this place of this reminder that God doesn't get tired or weary. And that's not meant as a statement that says that we never will. It's a reminder that God is God and we are not, but we have a God who does not grow tired or weary. We get tired. God doesn't get tired. We get compassion fatigue. This is important. God doesn't get tired of caring for you and me. So for any of you who are already in that place of, my goodness, is God still paying attention? Is there anything else that's still out there? Here is this reminder right here in Isaiah that says that God doesn't grow tired and he doesn't grow weary. And his understanding, this idea of understanding, there's a direct link between understanding and compassion, right? To understand is to get to know. It's to be close. It's to desire to be in things with us, right? We all want to be understood. It says that God has a level of understanding. Do you wonder sometimes if anyone knows how frustrated you are, how tired you are, how hurting you are? It says God has an understanding that no one can fathom. And I actually want to look quickly at a story with you where we get to see that this is not only an understanding of who God is that's consistent throughout the biblical account, but I want to take it very clearly into the person of Jesus, right? He's the one we're waiting for. He's the one we need. And in part, it's because Jesus is one and the same God who understands. We all need someone who understands, who's not going to grow tired or weary. And turns out that Jesus specializes in compassion. So I want to tell you this story. And it's a story that Luke shares in his time with Jesus. And I think it's interesting that Luke shares this story. Luke was a physician. And so this does fall around the ideas of health and life and all of these kinds of things. And so Jesus is in the midst of his ministry. These are early days. His disciples are following him. The crowds are starting to grow. And they're starting to see miracles happen. Things that don't fit within their realm of understanding. And there was one particular day where Jesus had already done several things and they were on the road. And Luke, Jesus is always going somewhere, right? Eventually he's heading to Jerusalem, but they're on the road to somewhere. And so this is in Luke 7, starting in verse 11. It says that soon afterward, Jesus, and this is after another miracle that Jesus had just performed, soon afterward, Jesus went to a town called Nain, and his disciples and a large crowd went along with him. What's going on? They're trying to figure it out. As he approached the town gate, right? I want you to picture this. They're going into a new town, but every town had these gates and these defined parameters of what was inside and what was outside. And as they're on the outside, and as they get close to the inside, close to this gate, it says a dead person was being carried out. Okay? I'm going to explain that in just a minute. As they approached the town gate, a dead person was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. All right, let's get our heads around this situation. Here's a woman who is on the way to bury her son, and she's a widow. So we don't know how recently this might have occurred, but we know that her husband has also died. And in that culture and in that time, if you didn't have a husband, you were without standing, you were without means for caring for yourself. So she, without her husband, would have been dependent on her son. And now her son has also died. Here's a woman who has lost everything. Where are you, God? Are you even paying attention? A large crowd from the town was with her. They were with her. They were on this procession out of the town gates. When the Lord saw her, his heart went out to her. This isn't always the picture we think of, right? Here's Jesus in this moment. And he doesn't rush to the miracle. It's about to happen. Hang in there. But in this moment, it just says that Jesus' heart went out to this woman. And he said, "Don't cry." And then he went up, and he's about to do something that is unheard of. Then he went up, and he touched the bier, B-I-E-R, it's this word, I'm going to explain it, they were carrying him on, and the bearers stood still. All right, so the way this worked in Jewish custom and tradition is that when someone died, the body was considered unclean. And in all of these rituals that they had around what they could touch and not touch, once a body was prepared for burial, it was considered unclean and you weren't to touch it. It was partly why, remember how I explained that they were outside the town gate and that's where the crowd was heading. The only people that were buried inside the town were people of some extreme prominence. But otherwise, because of these rules and these laws about what was clean and what was not, they would take bodies outside of the town gates for burial. So not only were they on their way outside, but they were carrying the child on what would have been like planks of wood. Okay, so we think about caskets, but these would have been planks of wood that then they had the body sitting on, the primary purpose for which being that by carrying him that way, no one actually had to get close. This is all significant because it says that Jesus goes up and he touches it. Jesus comes all the way in. And he said, "Young man, I say to you, get up." And the dead man sat up and began to talk, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. Okay, don't miss this moment when I tell you that Jesus specializes in compassion. In this moment, Jesus' compassion for the mother takes him directly to the body. Directly to this place that no one else was willing to go, into the middle of this sadness. The crowd was gathered on the outskirts, but Jesus goes right to the hurting. He goes right into the middle of that place. He doesn't keep his distance. He doesn't even observe the law and the customs. He moves immediately to the place of need. This is who our God is. He doesn't grow tired and he doesn't grow weary, and he has an understanding. He looked at this mother who had lost everything and he went. His heart went out to her and he went directly to the body, and he did what only Jesus could do. Jesus showed compassion. Now, there's an important distinction that needs to be made here, and it's the difference between compassion and pity. And too often when we start to feel this fatigue and this weariness, we can, in some ways, move in the direction of pity when we hear things and when we see things and even when we experience things. But Jesus teaches and shows us in this moment this picture of compassion. I was reading about the Japanese tsunami and earthquake that happened back in March of 2011. Some of you may remember it, or it may jog a memory for you, but this earthquake that happened on March 11th, 2011, it was a 9.0 on the Richter scale. Originally, they said 8.9. It eventually got bumped up by the other readings, and it is one of, if not the strongest earthquakes recorded in human history. And so one of the ones, obviously we haven't been recording them for human history, but by our measurements, this was massive, 9.0. And not only did this cause extreme devastation, and it came with the tsunami that introduced it, and so there was the damage from the water on the coastal areas, but then this earthquake moved across the land and actually impacted a nuclear facility. So again, just causing layers of damage and devastation. And I was reading the account of one of the people who went to help in the aftermath. This person was Japanese, but they weren't from the area that was most immediately hit. And so, like we do in our country, when different areas are hit, we send teams, we send people that can go and help. And so there's this one woman who went as part of a team of people in the immediate aftermath. And in her description, she said the devastation was so overwhelming that it was hard to know where to begin. They weren't even ready to do the rebuilding. They were just in the midst of all of the brokenness. And in her description of it, she started to describe this idea of, she said, you saw the people who were paralyzed by the moment, who stood there wanting to help, but not even knowing where to begin. But she said then you looked around, and one of the things she noticed was some of the kids who didn't take time to get stuck, maybe because they weren't trying to figure out the whole situation all at once, but they were simply moving toward each other. They were sitting in the rubble together. And she said as she watched that, there started to be different volunteers in their midst that would move to these places. And she said, what I learned in that moment is that there is a very real difference between compassion and pity. She said, feeling pity is a negative emotion, but compassion is a positive emotion. Compassion equates yourselves with others and is close to the feelings of others. You sit with them. Feeling pity for others is not sharing their feelings and therefore becoming an outsider. You see, we can feel badly, but then separate ourselves. Or we can feel compassion and move toward. And that's exactly what Jesus showed us time and time and time again. I know that a lot of you are hurting. It's been a long year. It's been a tough year. And I know there are so many of you that are hurting. And what I need you to know today is that Jesus is close at hand. We don't wait as people who have no hope. We wait as people with real hope for a God who comes and he draws near to the brokenhearted. He saw this woman and he moved. And he went straight to the place of death. And he met them there. Some of you need to know today that Jesus is close. And if I can just say a quick word about grief, which is something that I get right now, is that I know that this time of year can be even more difficult for so many of you as the world is trying to celebrate and light the lights and sing the songs, and what you're feeling makes you feel disconnected from all of it, and the hurt feels like it grows. Our God is a God whose understanding is so far beyond what we can even imagine. I want you to know that your God knows where you are. And his expectation of you is not your action. Jesus goes to the mother. It says his heart went out to her. I want you to know that God is moving towards you. He's not waiting for you to have the words to come back to him. God moves to you. And so I simply want you to know in this season that Jesus is close. You see, for all of us, Jesus comes for a world that needs a Savior. The Lord is compassionate and abounding in steadfast love, right? We hear that from the psalmist over and over again. The Lord is compassionate and abounding in steadfast love. He is never wearying. His compassion knows no limits. And so where does that leave us in this second week of Advent? Chances are it leaves us still weary. Still weary. But Jesus has what we need. Where we are weary and fall, and we're going to talk about those next couple verses in Isaiah next week, right? Even young men, they stumble and they fall. Our God does not grow weary. Jesus has what we need. We're still weary, but we are able to show compassion. You see, what the world needs this Christmas is not the ability to organize, arrange, fix, and happy our way out of everything that 2020 has thrown our way. Can I say that again? What we don't need right now and what we can't do is the ability to organize, arrange, fix, or happy our way out of everything that 2020 has sent our way. We need Jesus. The people walking in darkness saw a great light. That was Isaiah 2, right? We need Jesus, and Jesus comes close. Emmanuel, God with us. Jesus walks in to the town in Nain that day, but he walks into your home and into your life right now. We say this all the time. We need Jesus, and we need each other. It is okay to be weary, but our joy in this season, it comes with Jesus, and it comes when we show up to be present with each other. We are present with each other, just as God is present with us, because he doesn't fall asleep. He doesn't grow tired, and he doesn't grow weary. Let's pray. God, you're good and you're faithful, and in a season and a time when the world feels weary, I'm grateful for the reminder that you don't grow tired or weary, that you show up again and again and again in the midst of our lives. And God, I pray that that would be a very real reminder to everyone today who needs to know that, who needs to know that you're close at hand, that you know where we are, that you know what we're dealing with, and you don't run away, but you come near. God, help us to be a people who don't throw up our hands and who don't count ourselves defeated, but instead show up and sit with each other, who live and give the kind of compassion that Jesus showed us. God, thank you for loving us. We watch and we wait and we hope, because we know our help is on the way. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Walking around these walls, I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won, for you have never failed me yet. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never failed me yet. And Jesus, you're still enough. Keep me within your love, and my heart will sing your praise again. Oh yes, your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. And I'm still in your hands. Oh, this is my confidence. You never failed me yet. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. Oh, this is my confidence. You never failed me yet. Oh, no. I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way when there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way when there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way when there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. I'll see you do Promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. Oh, this is my confidence. You never failed me yet. Your promise still stands. Oh, great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. And I'm still in your hands. Oh, this is my confidence. You never failed me yet. Oh, no. You never failed me yet. I never will forget. God, you've